Welcome to the Writer's Mindset series with myself, Yvonne Redden, and welcome. Here we are in 2022, and I have my first guest here from Sydney, Australia. I'm delighted to introduce Robyn Flemming to the Writer's Mindset series. Thank you for joining me, Robyn.
Good morning, my time, Yvonne.
And evening time here. Yeah. So this series is all about chatting to storytellers and authors to find out what actually inspires and motivates a writer. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions today, and my questions are around the 5 W's of writing. So I'm going to begin with, let's introduce your book first, actually. So this is your book, and the lovely picture behind you, Skinful. Now, to anyone who doesn't know what that means, and I lived in Australia for 9 years, so I know what a skinful is. So it's quite a lot of alcohol, isn't it?
It means having had enough alcohol to make you drunk.
Yeah.
But in the book, skin is it's a recurring motif, and it means, has 2 other meanings. It means being comfortable and at home in my own skin, which I wasn't, and shedding an old skin for a new skin. So it has multiple meanings in the book.
Yeah, and it's a memoir of addiction, and we'll go into it through the questions as well. So, I mean, my first one is who, and who has been influential in your writing career to date, Robyn, or has anybody? I'm sure there has been.
I've been reading since I was a child, nonstop.
Yeah.
But there is one writer in this genre that I have now written in who stood out, and she's mentioned by every writer who writes in the genre. Her name is Caroline Knapp, and she wrote a book called Drinking a Love Story.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I understood the true nature of my relationship with alcohol, the way I was using alcohol. It was as a lover. It was as a private, obsessive relationship that I put before anything else. And she captured that. So she would be the most, I learned from reading her book 20 years before I finally stopped drinking. Not only about the nature of the relationship, but that it could be written about in that way. Although she was a journalist, so it's a different style of writing, but also very personal about her childhood. Have
you always written then, Robyn, or is this something that you just started, or is this your first book?
No, I think that's really interesting. I think every person has a story.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
And every person wants to tell their story, to be visible. And this is another recurring thing in my book, the times I wanted to be seen when I didn't want to be seen. Every person wants to have them, to be acknowledged. And this is the creative arts. Every person tries to find their way to tell their story, and it may be through writing, it may be through writing poetry, it may be through painting pictures, it may be through taking photographs, it may be through creating music, it may be through the way they play sport.
Yeah.
Every person, I think, has that impulse to create something that tells their story.
Yeah.
And writing has always been mine. Lately, I'm getting more into photography.
Yeah.
But writing, since before I could actually form letters, I've been writing stories.
So you've been writing a lot.
I knew what the story was, but it just looked like a scroll on the page.
Yeah. So you've always kind of journaled and blogged and stuff along your travels, have you?
I kept a diary for a long time. I destroyed that, as I tell in the book. I work as an editor, so I work with words all day, every day, and I read for pleasure. I'm up to my earlobes in words.
Yeah, It just comes everywhere. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes even like what you say there about everyone has a story. Some people are born storytellers. Like, you know,
Yeah.
they can just light up a room with it, telling a story. And then some people are fantastic at writing it. I would prefer to write a story than actually talk, you know, verbally do a story. But they're natural. I mean, we've lots of Shanakees here in Ireland that are brilliant at telling stories and hold forth in a party or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think it's finding your genre and your format to how you can express that story is the key.
Look, you have to learn the craft. I
Yeah,
don't think the craft comes naturally.
yeah,
And I enjoy the craft of writing. I'm an editor, I enjoy going over a sentence and tightening it. Could I read you just one sentence, which
I'd love you
is
to.
the
Yeah,
second sentence in the book?
yeah,
It's a preview of a pivotal experience that occurs halfway through the book. The taunt is from the passenger in a sedan that has slowed alongside me. It skewers me like a spear. So what we have here is the alliteration, all the S's.
yeah,
And it expresses the writing style here expresses the experience of being stabbed by words that hurt. So this is the craft of writing, but you have to have something that you're trying to say.
yeah.
So it's a complex mix, challenging, very satisfying when you write a sentence. You think that expresses on multiple levels my emotion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredible, the power of words, isn't it?
Mm.
And I know your genre, I mean, the genre of this is memoir. Have you always written kind of, well, your own personal writing would be memoir, or have you written anything else like non-fiction or fiction?
No, I'm in awe of novelists.
Yes,
I'm in
oh
awe of
my.
people
I
who
don't know
can
how they do it
create
either. Yeah,
worlds and people
yeah,
and inner worlds. I'm not interested in fantasy,
yeah.
you know, that whole area, but certainly the subgenre is a recovery memoir, which is known as quit lit.
Yes.
Quit lit. Yeah, I didn't know that
I
until
I've I didn't
this past year.
on research, and I've seen that as well, and
Yeah.
it's very apt, isn't it, that word?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
brilliant. It just yeah.
I think it came, you know, sort of from chick lit, you know,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
subgenre of,
Mm.
you know, but I mostly read in the area of nonfiction, memoir, autobiography, biography, letters, diaries.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the inner world,
Yeah.
and I've always written it in my own voice and
Mm.
trying to find that voice.
Mm.
You know, what is my voice?
Mm.
I like to think that my voice is clear, that I can convey very clearly, and that's through self-editing,
Yeah.
what I want to say. But there's also a self-deprecating humor, you know, and I like to own my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I have to be honest when I'm writing and say, this is me being a dick, you
Mm.
know.
Do you find it hard for someone else to edit your work then, being an editor yourself?
I asked to see every change. I
Yeah.
used a lot of before it was picked up by a publisher. I was going to self-publish.
Yeah.
I wanted to see everything. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't want a comma changed unless, you know,
Because that would be very hard to do, because that's what you do yourself. So, you know, you want to be in control of your own story. So
and I make decisions about every comma, you know,
yeah.
every word. And I don't want people imposing their voice on mine, but
Mm.
it makes me hard to work with.
Mm. I can imagine. And because sometimes I think when people write a book and they send it off to the editors and stuff, the voice can change. So then the story isn't really the story, is it? So there is that crossover that you want to keep it as authentic as possible.
In my work years ago, many years ago, I edited a novel, and it just wasn't, it was just a mess. And I rewrote the first chapter, returned it to the publisher and said, look, I think the author just really needs to do, this is not ready. The author needs to do something like this. And I knew the topic well because just prior I had edited a non-fiction book about this historical character.
Yeah.
So this was a different author, a different publisher, and a fictionalization of a historical figure.
Yeah.
And the author went back to the publisher and said, that's great, can she do it because I haven't got time. So that book went out with his name on it.
And you ghostwrite. Yeah.
And I thought, how could that author have so little sense of ownership of his book?
I know.
It was very strange.
But you know, it's a very big area that's booming, especially here in Ireland too. The ghostwriting, it's a big business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, you know, I do a lot of editing of publications written by people who are writing in English as a second language.
Yeah.
So, you know, I actually did, this is a funny story, I actually edited a huge book on an aspect of the Chinese economy.
Yeah.
And I had to say, what are they trying to say? It was written in English. And then I would write what I thought they had intended. It ended up in libraries all around the world as a definitive study of something.
Wow.
And my view of it was fiction. I'd made it up because I had to try and understand.
Yeah.
And I missed essential points, you know.
That's incredible, isn't
it? So there's all sorts of
it makes you wonder. I know. And can I ask you, I know the topic is addiction, it's alcohol addiction. When was the realization for you that something had to change in your life, and also realizing there was a problem with alcohol?
Yes, I had always used alcohol. I'd always I drank socially, but I had a very busy social life.
Yeah.
And drinking figured in every day. I wasn't a binge drinker. I drank daily because everything revolved around drinking.
Yeah.
What I did in my time off, I didn't drink in the morning.
Very functioning then. You were very functionable.
Very, very,
yeah.
Very. But I moved to Hong Kong in my 30s and I started to freelance, which was more stressful than having a full-time job, you know.
Yeah.
And the stresses started to accumulate and I started to hang out more for that drink at the end of the day because that signified the end of my workday. That was now me time. And it became a necessity. And one night and there was a certain amount that I needed to achieve the effect that I wanted. I didn't understand how that need came about until more recently, but we won't go into that just now. But I went to a work function and I had planned that I'll get a taxi and I'd go via a 7-Eleven and I'd pick up a bottle of wine and I'd have those extra 3 glasses that I needed to achieve the effect I wanted.
Before you got there?
Pardon?
Before you got there or for after?
For after.
Yeah.
For the meet, you know, because I was still at work, you know, at a work function, dinner.
Yeah.
And I was dropped at my door and I couldn't actually easily go and get that bottle of wine that I wanted. I would have had to wait inside the door until I was sure that my lift had gone, and then I'd skulk out and go and get. And I say in the book, I made the excruciating choice to go upstairs, get into bed and fall asleep, having had only 2 glasses of wine. And I really wanted 4, I really wanted 6, but most of the time I had to sort of make do with 4. And I ended up in hospital having a panic attack. I thought I was actually going to die. And because I hadn't self-medicated and I thought, wow, I'm really in trouble here. So I didn't look at my drinking. I changed my life and moved back to Australia from Hong Kong because I thought I was going to have a breakdown.
Yeah. Wow.
But then soon after that, I fainted one morning, having had a lot to drink the night before, and I was lying on my kitchen floor. And I made a telephone call to a well-known recovery group because I thought I have a problem. I'm going to actually have to address the problem. And so I was sober for 11 months, but part of me still thought I could manage. If I could only manage this, I could have the best of both worlds. I could still drink, but not get into trouble.
Yeah.
So I consciously decided I would start drinking again, and it took me 17 years. And that is a long time to be wallowing in the mire, you know.
Yeah. Wow. And like what would you do when you say, like you said, 4 glasses, you needed 4 glasses, like what would you drink on average a day? Like what do you consider that you needed? How much did you need to get through that day or that evening after? So you would hold yourself all day, and then in the evening time have your a few drinks. Yeah.
Well, I tried to set goals that required me to have no more than 2. I would sign up, train for a marathon, or I would sign up to do a high altitude trek.
Yeah.
You know, so I had to be fit. I have to be well.
Yeah.
Therefore, I can only have 2 glasses of wine, like a normal person.
Yeah.
This whole idea of what was normal, what normal people did. I thought normal people had 2.
Mm.
No one ever has 1.
Mm.
1?
We try and have 1, but it never happens.
1 never figured for me. No. But I really wanted 4, because then I could start to sort of, you know, the edges would start to smooth out. But if I could get away with it, I'd have 6. I'd have a bottle and a half of wine. And this is why I used to drink anything.
Yeah.
But the more trouble I got into, the more I was trying to manage my drinking, the more specific I became, because I couldn't have anything that might upset my calculations about what effect I would.
Yeah, and it's like as if you nearly like gave up one addiction and went on to another in the form of marathons and stuff like that, isn't it? Did you because you went hell for leather with all that as well, didn't you? Yeah.
It's a memoir of addiction as a phenomenon.
Yeah.
I have many addictions.
Yeah.
That was my primary one. There's also an addiction to a person. There's an addiction to traveling. There's an addiction to uprooting myself.
Yeah.
Some of them are positive addictions.
You've had a wonderful traveling career and life as well, haven't you? Yeah. As I said to you before this, I read one blog, and I was around the world in the matter of a few minutes reading. It's incredible. And your description of the places that you were, I mean, in New York 1 minute, in Istanbul, isn't it? Isn't that
Dublin?
Dublin, yeah. Fleeting. You'll have to come back here.
Dublin.
Yeah. But it's incredible. Traveling would be a lovely addiction to have. That's for sure. Yeah. That's definitely positive.
I became a global nomad, partly as a result of the experience I had. I read you the quote from the beginning. I had recently spent 3 months in New York. I'd been doing some trekking in Europe, and I found I traveled well. I was more my best self as a traveler than I was at home in my bedroom with my 2 dogs in regional Australia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I had this experience, which was, I interpreted it as being, my secret was on show. The secret that I was so ashamed of, my secret drinking, was bursting out. My shell that I was keeping very, you know, precariously in place had fractured, and my shameful secret was on show. So, of course, again, I didn't look at the behavior that was causing me to feel ashamed.
Yeah.
I sold my house. I gave away my dogs. I said, I'm going to become a permanent traveler.
Yeah.
I'm going to become a global gypsy.
Just a backpack on your back and off you went.
With a drinking problem.
Yeah. Wow.
I was self-employed, but I thought I will, yes, like some archetype figure heading off towards the sunset with a knapsack. weighed down by my addiction, but thinking I'll find a solution outside of myself.
Obviously not.
It took a while to realize the solution lies inside, and that is through acceptance and surrender.
Did you have any tricky moments when you were traveling, when you were like in that space? Yeah. And you met a lot of unsavory characters, I bet.
I had some bad experiences, but actually the two worst ones were after I'd gotten sober, and which was in August 2011, which was 15 months after I left Australia with my problem.
Yeah.
And but I was very vulnerable. That was part of the thinking, Yvonne. If I make myself really vulnerable, it was like if I sign on to train for a marathon, I'll have to force myself to have no more than 2 glasses of wine.
Yeah.
If I throw myself out into the world with a drinking problem, and I'm self-employed, so I'm vulnerable financially and in every other way, I will be forced to be good. I'll be forced to look after myself. It's crazy thinking.
Like, but it was crazy and brave all at the same time, really, Robyn, when you think back. I'm sure you look back and go, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad I did it all.
Yeah.
And I'll do it again.
Yeah.
You know, I'm now nearly 70 next year, and I'm throwing myself back out there because I am good at it. And now that I did that for 10 years before COVID, 10 years I was nomadic.
Yeah.
My family of friends is scattered around the world, you know, and I miss places, I miss people, I miss seeing new things. I'm addicted to those things, but to me, they are positive things.
Yeah.
I don't want to live life.
Where did you spend most of the pandemic then? Have you been locked down in Sydney?
I started it in Western Australia in Perth, in Fremantle in Perth.
Yeah. Nice place to be locked down in, I have to say.
Yes, I've never been there, but that's another story. But I found that while it wasn't in lockdown as such, the ways that I would meet people were on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I am very community minded. You know, I'm resourceful. I used to spending a lot of time on my own, but if I'm in a community, I want to be a part of the community. I want to be seen to be a part of the community. I want to contribute to the community. And a lot of the book is about how I find my community.
Yeah.
Right. Or make one around myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And
it seemed pointless being somewhere, even though it was pretty and I could walk around and take photographs. I thought, I think I better spend this is getting very drawn out, this pandemic. I might as well go back to my hometown where I'm already part of the community. Yeah, but you're dying to go off again though. You're getting itchy feet. Yeah, I'm sick of walking through the same car park every day to get to the supermarket. Yeah, you like a change, but it'll be a different experience, I suppose, now. I mean, you're sober a long time now as well, aren't you, Robyn? So going traveling, if you did it again, would be a completely different experience, wouldn't it? Well, you know, there are different issues. Now it's just health generally. Yes, you know, while my health is good. I just had 2 things in the past year. I broke my elbow running. And I had a pinched nerve and could hardly walk for 8 weeks. And I thought, gee, the future's arrived. And then it resolved. And I thought, no, it hasn't yet. So there was that, like I'd had a reprieve. And I thought, I'm going, you know, while I can, I'm going, because I have osteoporosis in my spine, you know, and so I'm no longer running, which is a great sadness. I was going to ask, are you still into, like, you would have to be very fit to do a marathon. So training wise, you would have had to do a lot of training. Yes. The problem is I don't lift my feet very high when I run, and I tend to trip. And now if I trip, I'll break something. Yeah. So this is a considered choice I'm making not to run, but I'll just finding another way, another hobby or another addiction, perhaps. Yes, well, now I walk and take photographs, so it's not really aerobic, but I'm I'm moving, I'm moving.
Got fabulous scenery over there. I remember taking beautiful sunrises and taking it all for granted when I was younger.
Yeah.
But
Where did you live in Sydney?
I lived in Bondi, I lived in Bronte, I lived in North Bondi, but I was over in Fremantle as well because there's quite an Irish community over there, and a lot of people from my area here, they've all settled there. Huh?
In a hairdressing salon in Perth. She was Irish.
Yeah, I was a hairdresser over there too. There you go. I was a hairdresser in Sydney, and I did a lot of the Irish nurses over there. So that was my previous life, but I loved it. I loved it. I have to say, I will get back one of these days for sure. It's still in me, you never forget. Yeah. But and when you were traveling around, did you carry a journal with you? Did you write?
Well, I did the blog, which
you did your blog, yeah. And that's all your blog posts are on your website. They're wonderful to read. But
I didn't, I found I just didn't keep them very updated, and I sort of summarized. That's why it was sort of like a whiplash experience. I was just summarizing. I wasn't exploring them as writing. It was really just diary entries. But
this could be another book then, Robyn, I think there's another book in there.
Oh, I think so.
Yeah.
I have, now I'm sort of focused on photography, and I call that my own two eyes, how I see the world.
Yeah.
And as opposed to how I run, walk and trek in the world. But, I have a book now to promote. I have friends I want to see, places I want to be. So this is a good time to go again.
Your book is doing really well. It's only gone out yesterday, wasn't it? Publication was yesterday. It's going fantastically well done. Did you find when it's out there and you got the hard copy there, like, what does that feel like that your heart and soul is in this book, and I can't wait to read it. I only got it yesterday, so I have to, I'm sure I'll be inspired.
It started out as a travel memoir called Where in the World Are My Orange Underpants?
Lovely. Why is it called that?
I was very attached. That was my working title for 5 years.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yes, and so it was really a travel memoir.
Yeah.
And I wanted feedback from probably after I'd written the first anecdote,
Yeah.
And I was impatient, and right through until I actually had the first full draft, which I pulled together using my blog to round out the story. I knew what my narrative arc was.
Yeah.
2 experiences that related to how I felt in myself in regard to my drinking, but that was sort of lost in 130,000 words of travel writing.
Yeah.
And that was the feedback I got. Who is this book for? Is it for runners? Is it for travelers?
Yeah.
For recovering alcoholics? There's too much going on. There's too many people. There's too many places. There's no focus. And
so there's a tip for writers watching this. It's kind of, you have to narrow down your audience, and that comes up many times in writing workshops. Who are you writing for? I mean, that's a big one, and you need to know that.
I've had people say they don't agree with this, but it makes sense to me. The difference between an autobiography and a memoir.
Yeah.
An autobiography is someone's life story, and or a biography is someone's life story. There is no point in my writing an autobiography because I am no one. I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a sporting star. No one knows me or cares about my story. But a memoir is using your experiences to tap into a universal experience that other people can identify with.
It captures a moment in time of your life, isn't it?
It's a focus that attracts a reader who is looking for answers to their questions about their own life.
Yeah.
So if I were to write an autobiography, I'd write about everything. I'd write about all the running, all the trekking, all the boyfriends, all the, everything. But and people might, if I were famous, they'd say, oh, I want to read about this person, you know.
Yeah.
But no one, but I don't have that, you know, that's not the book for me.
Yeah, the memoir genre is good, isn't it? Because you can write another memoir. You could write another memoir on another topic. So this is, you know, this is a nice genre to write for, isn't it?
But I had to learn that. I had to learn that what I was writing was a memoir, and that I needed to answer the reader's questions. And the question that a reader coming to my book, the questions that my book raises that readers might respond to are, who am I? What life do I want to live? Is it too late to make a change? Create a different future? Am I normal? Is what I'm doing normal? Do normal people do what I do? Do normal people feel the way that I feel? These are the questions that are at the, you know, the core of my book, my memoir.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to write it?
A very long time. I started writing it in 2015.
Right.
So it was the summer. I was in New York. I'd always written little vignettes.
Yeah.
You know, as a creative writing things, and I sort of, there are some stories. There's one story where I met a guy in New Zealand by arrangement. We'd met online through a group that we both belonged to. I was living in Australia, he was living in Asia. We met in New Zealand at midnight in a hotel room, and he was naked.
Wow.
And I had written that
That was a
story.
Skinful.
That was too much. And I had written that.
What chapter is that in, Robyn?
I can do it.
I'll be beginning with that one.
The door of our room was ajar. The lights were low. I walked into the small hallway. There was no sign of him in the bedroom. I retraced my steps and saw in the recess between the hallway and the bathroom a tall, naked man with an erection.
Wow, there you go.
So I had written that up. So, you know, that I could use that. But writing the story, because I knew that being a, 60, single, self-employed, active, with a drinking problem, there's got to be a story there.
Oh, for sure.
Writing is my medium.
Yeah.
So I started writing it in 2015. And just as I started, and the pivotal experience that had seen me leave Australia and head off towards the sunset with a big problem on my back, weighed down by this addiction that I was trying to find a solution for outside of myself. I knew that was an important part of the story. And then one day, purely randomly, I had an experience in Central Park. And when it happened, I thought that's the end of the narrative arc of this book that I've just started writing, because everything was the exact opposite of that precipitating experience. Just briefly, where it had been winter, it was summer. Where it had been night, it was morning. Where it had been cold, it was warm. Yeah. There were 2 dogs in both scenes. Yeah. There were the difference between, and the comments that 2 different people made in those 2 experiences were direct opposites. But the difference wasn't because I was in New York. The difference wasn't because it was summer. Difference wasn't because it was morning and I'd just been for a run. Yeah. The difference was in me. Yeah. Finally, I had changed myself. Yeah. Amazing. Did you feel like a weight off your shoulders when you finished your book? I literally did that thing. Hold the presses. There's a comma I need to fix on page 140. But you can't help yourself because of the area, the profession that you're in. It was never changed. But you have to put the full stop on that last line. You've got to just. That's it. Where I'd like to put one in. I mean, I suppose, and that it's brilliant. Well, the writer's mindset is about
Do you think people can learn how to write? I feel that people can learn this craft through writing classes, through workshops. It's definitely a skill, but you can definitely see the difference with somebody who has that naturally and that can just write so beautifully, and it just comes so naturally. What do you think yourself? Can you craft it?
Yes, I think you can learn,
Yeah.
you know, some of the skills, but I think one of the, you know, I think it's very important to be a reader.
Yes,
I've read
absolutely.
my whole life
Mm,
to read literature, to read good writing.
yeah.
You know, I see standards slipping. I edit a lot of academics, and even academics don't know how a sentence is meant to work.
Yeah.
Standards are slipping, and but it's not just sort of writing correctly and grammatically, it's writing elegantly
Mm,
and clearly. A
yeah.
lot of novice writers overwrite.
Yeah.
I said to a friend, you don't have to have all the instruments in the orchestra playing all the time.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
allow space for the flute. And so pacing, varying, you know, varying the pace, varying the intensity, simplicity.
Mm.
What are you trying to say? Say that as simply and graphically as clearly as possible.
And I think
Don't.
authentically, I think don't lose your voice. You know, I think
Yes.
write it in your voice. You have to, it has to be that they're listening to you, you know,
Yeah.
there has to be that authenticity for it.
Yes. There has to be
Um,
that.
where can people find yourself, and where can people find your book?
In the UK, I have a UK publisher and I have an Australian publisher. The UK publisher is Lantern Publishing, and you can order direct from Lantern Publishing from their website. It can be ordered from Book Depository. It can be ordered from Amazon. It can be ordered, which I'm old school. I love hard copy books, and I
Yeah.
love bookstores. So, you know, it's great if people go into their favorite bookstore and say, can you order this book for me?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you're supporting the trade, and booksellers become aware that that this book exists, and it helps build momentum.
Yeah.
I hope that readers will come away from my book feeling empowered. Inspired is an overused word, but you know, that it's never too late to make a change. Whatever the thing is
Yeah.
that they've come to this book as their question about
Yeah.
themselves, it's never too late to,
Mm.
you know, we are gifted with our lives, and, you know, we only have the one.
Yeah.
And
Do all those things that you want to do. I mean, I'm a firm believer in that myself. You know, we always procrastinate. I think people can do that.
Yes.
I would be a bit like that. I don't think, I just do it. And I don't want to regret. So I think,
yes,
you know,
be
you have to
authentic.
be
Use that word.
authentic.
Be
Yeah.
authentic. Be
Yeah.
yourself. Have your
Yeah.
voice. Be kind. I still have a lot of things I need to you know, I have dummy spits, what I call dummy spits, temper tantrums that
Yeah.
probably your twins, you know.
I haven't heard that expression in a long time. Dummy spits are very Australian. Oh, it's brilliant.
You know, so I need to look at how I deal with situations that aren't going my way. You know, it's late in the day to be looking at that, you know, 69. But I'm...
Look, the pandemic has really, you know, it's been hard on everybody because we're stuck. I think a lot of people feel stuck, and it's 2 years now, and it's a long time. And unfortunately, we can only plan to a certain extent at the moment, you know, especially with traveling, and thank God for Zoom, because here we are talking to each other. So there's been positives too of the pandemic. We have to look at that too, you know, and we will get there.
I probably wouldn't have finished the book because I was still traveling. I needed to be settled somewhere. I didn't realize, but now looking back, I needed to be settled where I would join professional associations and do online events about self-publishing, and then follow up with one of the presenters and say, would you be willing to work with me as a hybrid publisher on my book? And then she would, you know, this all happened because of COVID.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic and me being settled with a desk.
Yeah.
You know,
and not being able to go anywhere. So you had to. Yeah.
So I'm grateful for that. And
you have social media platforms. Are you on Instagram and Twitter? And
yes, I'm on Twitter.
Yeah.
In fact, I can tell you, Robyn Flemming author
is your website, isn't it? As well.
Okay, robynflemingauthor.com is my website. That's all lowercase. Facebook, the same, Robyn Flemming author. Twitter is author R Flemming. Instagram, Robyn Flemming author.
Yeah.
On my book website, I will be starting a new blog, which I'm calling the Skinful World Tour. Like Elton John, you know.
Why not? If he can do it, why not you?
Yeah, so I'm there. You know, I'm most active on Facebook, but Facebook is my visual diary.
Yeah, and your book is out there now, so it's available now to buy. So please buy. And are you reading anything at the moment? Have you got 3 books? What are you reading?
Oh my goodness! I packed up my house again. Everything. I'm now living out of a suitcase again, but I brought with me Patricia Highsmith's 1,000 pages diaries and notebooks.
Wow.
The writer.
That's some book.
It is amazing. She's an incredible character. She was alcoholic.
Yeah.
She was addicted to many things, but she was a prolific writer. And her perseverance is really sort of impressive. And after that, I have 2 more hard books, which I'll leave with friends here in Sydney when I leave.
Yeah.
So this, I'm really looking forward to. Nuala O'Connor's Nora, a love story of Nora and James Joyce.
Yeah, lovely. It's a lovely cover, isn't it?
Yes. I tried to buy the letters. I had read a biography of Nora.
Yeah.
And it's in the book. I read it on a flight from Taiwan to South Africa. But the letters are actually out of print. They're collector's items.
Wow.
And the third one is an adventurer, Wilfred Thesiger. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his surname.
Yeah.
The Life of the Great Explorer. So these are the sorts of books that I read.
Can I ask you who designed your book cover, and where did you find that? Where did you get the book cover for Skinful?
I had the painting that this is a detail from.
It's very different.
For 12 years, 10 years that I was a nomad. When I reclaimed it, I hung it on my wall and I took a photograph of it and I showed it to the designer who was the first designer I worked with. I was self-publishing, so I was working with professionals in every area, and I showed it to the designer and he loved it. And so it's been perfect. Who knew that that painting that I bought when I was having panic attacks from my drinking would actually be used? So the artist's name is Dee Choi. She lives in Hong Kong. She's thrilled.
Yeah, it's very effective. Yeah.
But the cover design, incorporating that painting by Christabella Designs, who was recommended to me by the Bernadette Foley, who runs Broadcast Books, which is a hybrid publisher. She works with independent authors.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Robyn, I'm not going to keep you any longer. Your day's beginning, mine is ending. Thank you so much. And thank you. You're my first guest of 2022. It's wonderful. Thank you. Thanks for your time, especially.
Thank you, Yvonne.
And these will, I'm across all social media platforms, and these will be on YouTube as well. So if anyone wants to contact me, they know where to find me. Again, thank you for your time. I'm sure there'll be another book. I can definitely feel something coming from you, Robyn. I look out for your blogs.
We'll catch up in Dublin.
Oh, for sure. You let me know when you're coming here.
Are you in Dublin?
Yes, I am. Yeah, yeah. I'm hoping to get back over to you, you know, but anyway, it won't be in the distant future. Thank you so much for your time. And see you all next time on The Writer's Mindset. Thank you, Robyn.
Bye.